Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to be getting into the hips, some hip mobility, and then core stability, working on lower core, glute activation primarily. Let's get started. So starting on our back, we're going to get into our crocodile breath, making our nice big C shapes with the hands going below the ribs, above the hip bones, and that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. Thumbs in the low back, index fingers wrapped around the front, and getting that nice little kind of squeeze in so that we can feel that resistance for the inhale phase of our breath. As we inhale, want to feel that pushing into the thumbs at the low back, index fingers in the front, and palms out through the sides. Nice slow inhale. Feel that expansion. Nice slow exhale out through the mouth, drawing that navel up and into the spine. With each inhale, see if you can feel that abdominal wall expanding out like a balloon a little bit more and a little bit more. On your exhales, let your shoulders soften and relax. I want to make sure those shoulders aren't tensing up and lifting up off the floor. As you inhale, kind of feel any tension. Exhale, let that tension relax, but try to keep that focus. If there's any tension in the body, it's filling up that abdominal wall. It's the tension of that pressure pushing out into the hands. Full exhale out through the mouth. We'll get one more nice breath in and out. And then we're going to slowly sit up and get into our shin box position. So I'm in my shin box, left side shin box, left hand is down, grounding the palm, spiraling that elbow pit out and away so that we feel that shoulder blade packed down and back. Sternum's lifting tall, tall spine. Starting with our hip openers. Nice slow inhale into that crocodile breath, doing that same breath. Exhale, drawing the navel up and in as we lift that back knee slowly up towards the ceiling. Inhale as we let it back down. As we're lifting that knee, I want to make sure that we are not opening up our shoulder. I don't want to move in the upper body. I want to be nice and still through the upper body and chest, only isolating that hip. Squeeze into it at the top. Inhale as we let it back down. We'll do 5 up to 10 nice slow reps. I really want to get that extra squeeze at the top, not forcing it, but just feeling what is that end range and can I pull into it and get a little bit more with each one without going into pain, pinch, or stress. Once we've done 5, nice slow transition to the other side. Again, grounded palm, spiraled out elbow, packed shoulder, tall sternum, tall spine. Inhale into that crocodile breath. Exhale as we nice slow open that back hip. And just like the other side, I want to pay attention to make sure we're not opening that shoulder with the hip. I don't want that shoulder rolling back. I want to keep that chest still so that we're just isolating that movement at the hip. And notice, does this hip feel tighter, more restricted, or is it more mobile and less restricted than the other side? And I want to, again, slow down at the very top, squeeze into it, inhale as we let it back down. We'll get one more squeeze into it. And then we're going to slow transition back to the other side. Getting into that back hip. Now I want to imagine that inhale breath as we fill up our crocodile breath, There's also a weight to it that drops into that back pelvic bowl. Feel that pelvis drop to the floor. See if it touches the floor. If it doesn't touch the floor, it's not a big deal, but I want to feel it reach to the floor. On the exhale, it's lifting up. We're reaching that hip bone forward and we're lightly scooping into it. If your sacrum, that bone in the back in between your pelvis, was the palm of your hand, the fingers would be the tailbone. I want to scoop and feel that tailbone reaching forward. The more we're able to do that at that full hip extension, we should start getting a good stretch on that exhale through the front of the hip. We should also start to feel some tightening and contracting in the back in the glute. I want to avoid shifting weight into that back hip. I don't want my shoulders rocking back. I want to keep that weight on my opposite palm. I want to let that hip be free to be able to reach to the floor. Exhale, actively scoop. As we scoop, squeeze into it at that end range a little bit more. Try to get as much of that stretch in the front and as much of that contraction in the back. Get into it, then inhale as you bring it back down. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, nice slow transition back to the other side. Again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Nice inhale, crocodile breath, but also feeling that weight of that breath moving into that back hip bowl. Exhale, lifts, reaches forward and actively scooping that tailbone. Feel that stretch through the front of the thigh. Try to feel that contraction in the rear. And with each one, squeeze, get into that exhale, continue to squeeze into it lightly, trying to maximize that range of motion. How does this side feel compared to the previous side? Is it tighter, more restricted, or is it more mobile and less restricted? And getting an idea, starting to kind of feel which hip is tighter, which movements are tighter side to side are going to be really important as far as assessing our movement. More importantly, with just understanding where we move well compared to where we don't move as well. The areas we don't move as well are areas in which we can get improvement. We'll slow transition back to the other side. We're going to do that same inhale into the back hip bowl, exhale, actively scoop, locking in. I want to lock in that active scoop, that squeezing into it. And then we're adding in a reach with rotation. So as I rotate, I want to spread my hand as wide as possible, fingers wide, extend elbow fully, spiral the palm up to the ceiling, and then rotate through that shoulder, trying to get that rotation. I want to feel that shoulder rotating to extend those fingers as far forward as possible. Inhale, we're unwinding all the way back into that back hip bowl. Exhale, actively scoops, locking it in. Open hands, spread, palm up, extend elbow, and rotate. As we lock in that back hip and spiral, you may feel that stretch kind of move up into the obliques, and then getting in that rotation, we may feel that stretch into that low back. Notice how tight and stiff, how far are you able to rotate? After 5 to 10 reps, we're going to move back to the other side. Again, palm down, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Inhale into that back hip bowl. Exhale, actively scoop, lock in that hip. Then we're spreading hands, extending the elbows, spiraling the palm up as we rotate. Inhale, unwinds all the way back into that back hip bowl. Exhale, squeeze into that hip extension. Again, I want to feel that maximum contraction in the glute. continue to spiral, extend, spread. How does this side feel compared to the other side? Does that hip and oblique or low back feel tighter? Does it feel harder to reach? One good assessment to notice is, does it take your breath away more on one side? Especially as you get into that end range, do you feel that tension in your breath where it's harder to exhale on one side more so than the other? Once we get 5 to 10 reps, we're going to switch back to the other side. And now we're going to get into that side body space. So the hand that's been on the floor, we're bringing it off the floor. So I'm in my left side shin box. My left hand is now coming up over the top of the head. I'm going to try to keep the forearm relatively flush with the ceiling. We're still inhaling into that back hip bowl. Exhale as we actively scoop, letting that hip come forward and scooping into it, trying to lock in that back hip. Let's do 3 to 5 reps of just inhale into that back hip, exhale, actively scooping. It may be a little bit more challenging to have that hand up. Body may want to lean. So I want to feel this movement just in that back hip. Once we get to 3 or even 5 reps, once you start to exhale and scoop, I want to start to reach that elbow up to the ceiling, like you're trying to touch the tip of your elbow to the ceiling. Inhale, unwinds, brings that hip all the way back into that back hip bowl to the floor. Exhale, actively scoop, lock in that back hip first, then add that lift through the elbow. Once we get 5 up to 10 reps, we can bring that arm down. Nice slow transition to the other side. Doing that same thing, bringing that opposite, that hand up, forearm flush with the ceiling as much as you can. We're going to start with just that inhale into that back hip bowl. Exhale as we actively scoop. Inhale, let it fill up, dropping that hip to the floor. Exhale, see if you can get a little more squeeze into that scoop. Can you feel more of that stretch on the front and more of that contraction in the back? And again, we're doing 3 to 5 reps. On the next one, as we exhale and scoop, we're starting to lift that elbow up to the ceiling. I want to lock in that hip first and then lift through that elbow like you're trying to touch the ceiling with the very tip of your elbow. Inhale, unwinds into that back hip. Exhale, scoop, lock in that hip, and then add that lift. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, bring that hand down. We're going to move back to the other side. Now we're going to get into our folds. Today with the folds, I'm going to use the arrow of the knee. So I want to bring my shoulders and my hands so that I'm perfectly square to that knee, the angle of the knee. I want my sternum to be lined up right through that knee. So I need both hands on equal sides of that knee. From here, we're going to do the same breath into that back hip bowl, but my hands are down. Exhale, I'm actively scooping that back hip forward, trying to lock it in. And then I'm going to let those hands slide, keeping even and square to the knees so that our sternum moves right through the center of the knee. Inhale brings us all the way back up, unwinding, breathing into that back hip bowl. Exhale, actively scoop as we fold. Again, trying to keep shoulders and chest square with the sternum. Want to make sure those hands are reaching evenly. that we don't have one hand that's reaching further than the other. If one hand's going further than the other, that means your shoulders are not square. I want to keep those shoulders square, which means hands should be even. Again, as we inhale, let that back hip drop. Exhale, scoops, reaching it forward, locking it in, and then that nice fold. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, nice slow transition to the other side. Again, bringing hands even to the around the knee, squaring that sternum up to the knee. Inhale into that back hip bowl, keeping the hands on the ground. Exhale, actively scoop. Feel that stretch through the front of the hip, glute engaged, sliding those hands nice and even, keeping that sternum reaching through the knee. Inhale all the way back into that back hip bowl. Exhale, scoop, lock it in. Nice exhale as we fold. Now, by staying square to the knee, you may find that one side, it's a lot harder to stay square, that there's more tension in the low back. So that's part of the reason I like this version of the shin box folds assessment. We can get a little bit more feel into some of that tension in that low back area, especially if one side of your shin box is more challenging than the other side is. Once we get 5 to 10 on this side, we're going to start to go back and forth. Now, as I go back and forth, I'm less concerned about keeping that shin angle. We've got our assessment. We got a good sense for how our back and hips feel. Now we get to explore. So it's just a nice fold. I kind of want to go where it feels good and juicy. Inhale as I come all the way back up. Exhale as I transition across. Inhale as I finish my transition, and then exhale as I fold on the other side. And as we're going back and forth, start to feel the difference. How does that right side fold feel compared to the left side? Is one side tighter, more restricted, more challenging, more difficult to get into than the other side? Is one side easier? Does it feel good, like the side that you want to be on? And is there a side that your body kind of wants to avoid? That would be a really, really important assessment point. As we're going back and forth, we're now going to start to change that shin box angle. We're going to let that back leg start to slide open more. Continuing to get that nice fold. When I fold, I still want to keep the hands even so that my shoulders are staying square. But again, I can start to play with where I explore. I can reach more forward. I can reach behind my knee. I can reach through the knee. We have a few more options of which we can play with. And play is a really appropriate word here. I want to be exploratory. I want to be playful. I want to be in a state where I can discover things. Often what we're going to discover is where movement feels tight and restricted that we didn't know was tight and restricted. And that can be really beneficial information. With each one, we're continuing to open up that back hip more and more to what we comfortably can, getting closer to a yoga class pigeon pose. Although I'm less concerned about that yoga class pigeon pose, I'm more interested in what we find with some of these positions of that back leg. When I'm on my right side with my back leg relatively open, this position actually feels fairly easy to me today. I have a little bit of tightness through my right side low back into that right glute. But when I come to my left side and open up into the same position, my right hip, I have more tightness and tension into the adductors. I feel that a lot more right here. Bigger stretch, bigger pull, which is a little bit new. That has kind of flipped on my body over the past few weeks. It was my left hip that was tight in that space, but I've been doing a lot more work to kind of address that. And so it's actually shifted to the other side, which is not unusual for my body, largely because I have 5 surgeries on this right knee and I have true instability. So my body is constantly compensating for this knee. All right, we're going to come back to our starting point. Now we're going to get into our shin box to knees. On this, I have a lot of clients that deal with knee pain, so I want to go very cautiously through this. If you do deal with knee pains, I want to start on the hands, and I probably want to stay using hands throughout this until we have worked this movement for several weeks so that we know we can do it without knee pain. From here, I'm using both hands. I'm in my left side shin box, so left hand is going to go behind, right hand is in front, and I kind of have a nice push-pull. I'm lightly driving through the knees to lift the hips up. Once I get up, I want to actively scoop into it so I can feel some stretch through the front of the hips. And then I want to bring those hands down to guide all the way to the floor. Then we can transition to the other side, doing the same thing. Hand in the back, hand in the front, guiding up. I want to make sure that this is not painful or stressful on the knees, especially if you have history with the knees. We'll continue to go back and forth. And again, if those knees feel weak, they feel unstable, then this is a movement that might be worth skipping for now until after a consultation. If you just need to use hands, continue to use hands. Don't feel that you have to push your progressions just because that's what I'm teaching in the class. Use the hands to work and groove the movement in. It may take a while. For those who don't have knee pain on this, we can start to go with less of our hands, using more drive through the knees and coming up, trying to scoop that tailbone into it. So I want to try to pull from that scooped tailbone, bringing the body up into that same stretch. And then on the way down, we're sticking that tailbone out and reaching back with it to find the floor. You don't want to plop. I want to reach, kiss the floor, bring it across to the other side, scoop into it, and then bringing it down. We're reaching that tailbone backwards, reach, don't plop, and we'll go back and forth, doing at least 5 to 10 reps on each side. My breath on this is I am exhaling as I come up, exhaling into that scoop, drawing that navel in, inhaling on the way down, filling up that belly as that tailbone reaches back. Notice if one side of this feels easier to do. You may find one side is easier to come up and the other side is more challenging to come up. More importantly, you might find that the going down is easier on one side, that you can really reach and sit to the or sink to the floor where you just kiss the ground. And the other side, it feels like, oh, I can't get the ground and I tend to plop. That's going to be an important assessment point as well. And definitely worth consultation. All right, we're now going to move into our quadruped position, spreading hands nice and wide, grounding palms, tucking the toes in the back. And we're going to do a little bit of foot mobility, and then we're going to get into some spinal waves and then some tall kneel lean backs. So I want to really get those toes tucked underneath as much as possible. Inhale, we're going to rock forward. exhale, I want to feel the weight of our hips sink to our heels so that we can feel that nice slowed stretch into the balls of the foot and into the arches of the feet. Inhale as we come forward. Exhale as we very slowly let those hips sink, squeezing into it. Inhale as we come forward. As we're sinking into it, I want to continue to feel that weight. I want to see how much can we start to feel the weight of our hips to our heels. Can we start to come up into a kneel, a deep kneel sit with the toes tucked in? Inhale, we come all the way forward. We can use this as an assessment point for the feet as well as the knees. If your feet are too painful, do not push into this position. Only going back as far as we comfortably can, not getting into pain. If you're able to sit back at the feet, but you're finding that the knees are stiff and not allowing that hip to come down, that would be an indication of some inflammation and swelling in the knees. Now we're going to go ahead and untuck the toes, and we're going to do a lot of the same stuff. So nice exhale as we reach those hips back to the heels. Inhale as we come back forward. And as we're doing this one, I'm now continuing to pay attention to that, to the knee space as well as the front of the ankles. Does one ankle want to sit off the floor? Is there space? Maybe both ankles want to stay off the floor. Do you feel a lot of tightness and tension through the front of the ankle space? If so, then this is a movement I might want to groove in a little bit more. Can we get that space in the front of the ankles to open up a little bit over time? If you're able to get hips to the heels, can you start to sit back and rest hips on the heels in that deep kneel sit without discomfort in the knees? If we're able to go through all of this without pain, then we can now bring this up into a tall kneel. And this is where we're going to get into some of our pelvic scoops, coming back into our crocodile breath, breathing into that crocodile, exhale, drawing the navel into the spine. As we breathe into that belly, I want to let the pelvis tilt forward. Belly opens up, big sway in the back. Exhale, we're drawing that navel up and in as we scoop so that we feel that light, maybe a light stretch in the front of the hips, but more importantly, we start to feel some contraction in the glutes. Inhale, opens it up. Notice how as we inhale, belly opens up, that rib is sticking out. As we exhale and scoop, rib is drawing down. Core should be kind of getting tight and engaged. I want to really start to feel that scoop and engaged core. If you're able to get that, again, I'm going to need to make sure we are not in pain, no pain in the knees or in the back. As we get that scoop and we lock in that core, feeling that core engagement, we can bring our hands across chest and start to lightly lean back. Now, inhale, coming forward, opening it up, exhale, scoop, and then a nice slow lean. Now, as I lean back, I don't want to lose my pelvis or my rib. I don't want to reach back from the shoulders where I get this big arch in my back. I want to maintain scoop and engagement. So I'm really more forward with my head and my shoulders as I'm rocking back. I don't want those head and shoulders to be to lead the way. I want them to be behind. I'm really leading the way with my core. Once we get about 5 or so with the toes untucked, we're going to go ahead and tuck the toes. We're going to do that, start with that same pelvic tilt. Inhale, let the belly go forward, pelvis goes forward. Exhale, actively scoop. Get 3 or 5 breaths. Feel that locked in front of the hips, glute engagement, and core activation. Once you feel all those things, as you exhale and scoop, let those hands cross and start to lightly lean back. Inhale as we come forward. Opening it up. Exhale as we scoop and lean back. Again, only lean back as far as you can, maintaining that core engagement and not getting that arch in the back. Good. We'll go ahead and come down to the floor. And now we're going to get onto our back. So letting the legs go straight out in front, we're going to bend one knee, placing that foot flat to the floor. We're going to bring that foot out to about 45 degrees from the midline of the body. And we're going to start with just breath and light pelvic tilt, but we're only tilting one pelvis. So as we inhale, feel that belly open up to the ceiling. It's going to lift the spine, so we should have some space in our low back. Exhale, draw that navel in, feel that belly button like a thumb pressing the spine into the floor, and get a light scoop. And I'm really just getting that light scoop on the pelvis of the foot that is on the floor. Opposite leg and pelvis are relatively relaxed. Inhale brings that belly up. Exhale feels the belly button pressing the spine down, and light scoop. As you get that light scoop, you should notice some grounding downward pressure through that foot. So we're going to continue that breath and scoop, but with each exhale and scoop, allow that pelvis to scoop up a little bit more where you feel it start to lift off the floor. Opposite hip, again, should be relaxed and will stay on the floor. And we're going to exhale, scoop higher and higher till we start to feel some stretch through the front of that thigh. And as we start to feel that stretch, I want to squeeze into it. Feel that downward pressure through a flat grounded foot. I want to start to feel that activation in the glute. But it's from this downward pressure as we actively scoop into it. Inhales, bringing it all the way to the floor. Exhale, nice downward pressure as we scoop. Again, notice the opposite leg. I want it to be completely soft and relaxed. If you feel that opposite leg pushing down and trying to lift your hip completely off the floor, then you got to get some energy into that leg, or really take some energy out of that leg. Get it to soften and relax. We're only firing one side of the body. On the next one, at the top, we're going to stay at the top. We're keeping that hip elevated, but we're going to come back into those pelvic tilts. Inhale, allow the belly to open up a little bit. Allow that pelvis to tilt forward, even though it's off the floor. Exhale, we're scooping it back in, feeling that stretch through the front of the thigh, an activation of the glute. Again, inhale, tilts lightly. Exhale, scooping into it more. We'll get a good 5 up to 10 reps of that. I want to start to feel that glute burning a little bit from being fired up and activated. And then we'll come back all the way down to the floor. Inhale, all the way back up. Exhale for 5 more. Again, really squeeze into that glute. Try to get as much contraction in that glute as you can. We're moving into that stretch as much as you comfortably can, making sure that it is not painful. And after 5 of those full range, we will go ahead and switch sides. Again, foot comes flat to the floor, moving it out to about 45 degrees from the midline of the body. We're starting with just breath and pelvic tilts with the pelvis staying on the floor. So inhale, belly lifts up, big sway in the back. You should be able to slide a hand under that low back. Exhale, belly button drives that spine into the floor. Light scoop of just the pelvis of the foot that's on the floor. Inhale into that exhale, scoop. As you feel that scoop, can you feel that light engagement of the foot grounding down into the floor? You can even work to spread the toes, keep that foot evenly grounded. And with each exhale, we're now going to start to continue to scoop into it and let that hip scoop a little higher and a little higher with each one, till we start to feel that light stretch through the front of the thigh. Inhale as we bring it all the way back down. And with each one, feel that stretch through the front, squeeze into it a little bit more. See if you can start to feel that glute activating in the rear more. Pay attention to that opposite leg. Again, I don't want it to be pushing down to where it's lifting this hip off the ground. This opposite hip should be completely soft. We're kind of rolling over it. It's not active. With each one, see if you can squeeze a little bit more into it to start to feel more and more of that glute contraction. Notice if this side feels easier or harder than the other side. On our next exhale at the top, we're going to keep it at the top, and we're going to come back to those tilts, pelvic tilts at the top. Inhale, let the belly open up, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, actively scoop into it, but try not to let the hip drop down to the floor. And with each one, actively scoop a little bit more and a little bit more so that you start to feel that burn in the glute. I want to feel that burn because it's really being fired up. And we'll do 5 to 10 of these nice scoops at the top. And then we're going to finish with that full range, letting it all the way back down on the inhale. Exhale, scooping all the way back up. Again, feel that glute should be feeling it a little bit. It should be feeling activated, maybe a little bit of that burn in the glute, continuing to move into that stretch through the front of the hip. Good. So once we've evened out, we're now going to bring both feet flat to the floor. I don't want the feet to be super tight. They can be away from the hips just a little bit. Feet are going to be about hip to shoulder width apart. And I want nice, flat, grounded feet. We're going to do the exact same breath into pelvic tilts, but now both feet are on the floor. Inhale, belly is lifting up. Again, lifting the spine off the floor. Exhale, feel that belly button push the spine into the floor as we lightly scoop the tailbone. Inhale brings us back up. Exhale, actively scoop. And on the next one, as we scoop, we're going to continue to scoop and see if we can start to peel the sacrum and the spine off the floor, one vertebrae at a time. So the first one, scoop and see if you can just scoop where you just lift the sacrum, but you feel the lower vertebra still on the floor. Inhale as we let the sacrum back down, belly lifts up. And then on the next one, as you exhale, see if you can scoop, lift the sacrum and just the L5 vertebrae, that first vertebrae off the floor, but keeping the upper spine still on the floor. Inhale as we let it down, belly opens up, and we're going to do this one vertebrae at a time, scooping a little bit higher, lifting the next vertebrae up, all the way down. We're going to continue to do that. The hips are going to get a little higher on each one. And the only way you're going to be able to maintain that little bit of spine on the floor is that active scoop of the tailbone, scooping into it. As we get closer to the top, we're now starting to work to feel that stretch through the front of the thighs. And we want to get that activation through the glutes. But that scoop is what's going to be doing it. I want to actively turn that tailbone up to the ceiling, like we're trying to touch the ceiling. I want to feel the ribs drawing down at the same time so that we feel that nice active glute at the top. Inhale, we're still letting that belly open up. Exhale, press the belly button to the spine into the floor, and then scoop, peeling each vertebrae one at a time. On the next one, as we get to the top, we're going to stay at the top, and we're going to work that breath with tilts at the top. So on the inhale, let the pelvis tilt up to the floor to where we get some sway in the back and the belly opens up. Exhale, we're actively scooping into it to feel that stretch on the front and engagement of the glutes. I don't want the hips to drop on this part. I want to keep them at the same level, but we're just tilting at that high point. And with each exhale, you should feel those glutes kind of fire up more and more. Get 5 up to 10 breaths with that scoop. And then we're going to let the hips come all the way back down to the floor. And we're going to finish with some light baby rolls. So legs go flat. I want the feet to be about hip to shoulder width apart. Arms are coming up into a nice Y position. If you find the shoulders are stiff and the arms don't want to rest to the floor, then let them come out a little bit more to the side until they rest softly on the floor. We're getting back into that nice crocodile breath on the inhale. And I want to have some downward pressure through our heels. I want to press the heels down into the floor with about 5 pounds of pressure so that we feel a little bit of engagement through the back line of the legs and the glutes. And I want to maintain that downward pressure as we get into our baby roll. So my heels are pressing down. And we're going to start with our baby rolls with arms. I'm going to turn my head to the right, and I want to look at my right hand, and I'm going to bring my head off the floor as I reach across with my hand to match hands. I want to see if I can match my fingertips as I exhale. Inhale, I'm coming all the way back. Exhale to the other side. I'm turning my head, lifting it off the mat as I reach across with my right hand and try to match to my left. Inhale as I come back. I want to make sure that I'm maintaining that downward pressure through the heels and that my toes are pointed straight to the ceiling. As I reach and I don't want my feet to roll and turn with me. I want to keep them straight up. It's going to help to create some counter tension in the body so that we're going to get some nice mobility through that spine as we try to match. Make sure that we are not moving into pain, only reaching as far as you comfortably can. And as we're going back and forth, notice if one direction is easier. As I reach with my left hand across, this side feels easy and open. Not too much problem keeping that pressure in the heels and getting into that full reach. But when I reach with my right hand, this side feels tighter, more restricted, especially in my low back area. It's harder to get into. It's not painful. It's just tighter and more challenging. And that's an important thing to notice. That's going to be a big signal for an area in which we want to work on improving our mobility. Once we get about 5 to 10 side to side, we're coming back to our starting point. And now we're going to reach through the feet. We're going to lift a foot up relatively high, and we're going to keep it elevated. I want to point the toes, and I want to reach, kind of like I'm reaching up onto a shelf. I'm going to reach across I want to reach so that it pulls my hip off the floor and then pulls my shoulder blade off the floor. But I want to try to keep some contact with the back of the hand. Inhale, we'll bring that leg all the way back down. Exhale as we lift the other foot, point the toes, and reach across. Again, keeping it elevated, reaching so that it pulls the shoulder blade off the floor, but we try to keep some contact with the back of the hand. Inhale as we bring it down and across. And with each one, I'm seeing if I can reach and extend those toes a little bit further, making sure we are not moving into pain in the low back or in the shoulder or in the hip for that matter. And as we're getting into this one, on that reach, as you extend those toes, start to counter reach through the hand. That shoulder's off the floor, but we're trying to slide those fingers across the floor in the opposite direction, trying to create some traction from fingertip to toe tip as we go side to side. Again, notice if one side feels more challenging, there's more of a tension pattern, or maybe there's a little bit more discomfort. Once we get 5 to 10 and we're pretty well balanced out, we're going to bring our feet flat to the floor, make our big C shapes with our hands, thumbs in that low back, index fingers wrapped around the front. And we're going to finish with some our crocodile breath, reassessing the crocodile, the balloon breath from the beginning. So nice inhale in through the nose, feel that nice expansion through the abdominal wall. Exhale, feel that navel draw all the way up and into the spine, expelling as much of that air as possible. Let the hands clench down a little bit to create resistance so that you can feel that inhale phase. Can you feel that balloon pushing out in all directions, especially in the low back, pushing into the thumbs, and out through the sides, pushing into the palm? Is it the same on the right side of the body as it is on the left side of the body? Or does one side move a little bit more than the other does? And if you're feeling one side moves better, then you can kind of wiggle your thumb or your palm on that side that doesn't move as well as you inhale, and try to focus the inhale of that breath into that space that is not moving as well. You can think of that breath like a spotlight, and you're shining it directly where it's not moving as well. And see if you can encourage that space to open up and allow a little bit more breath in. You might feel some stretch associated with it. After about 5 to 10 breaths, we can let the hands soft, relax down to our sides, palms up. Feel the shoulder blades relax. We're going to bring that breath up more into the ribs. Want to continue to feel that expansion into the abdominal wall, but we're also letting it up into the rib cage, front of the chest, side ribs, and upper back. Nice inhale, blowing up the balloon of the ribs. Exhale, continuing to draw that navel up and into the spine. On our inhale, breathe into tension. Notice shoulders, notice the neck. Exhale, let go of tension. Let it release into the floor. Take your time with this breath. If you feel tension, you can spend a few minutes just Lightly breathing into that tension. Exhale, let that tension go. And on your own time, when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and take your time coming up to a sit before you come to a standing position to make sure that you're not dizzy or lightheaded.